HTMX is not a next-gen web dev technique. In this video, I'll reflect upon my recent experience developing a modern stateful UI with zero JavaScript and HTMX. Though it has some promise, I will go through what ultimately disqualifies it as a next-gen web dev technique, and I'll also show how HTMX could be improved upon.
Let's remind ourselves a little bit about how the Mina Blockchain Explorer works. We have this imported HTMX library, which governs how state that is returned from the server should be updated on the front end. So how is that governed? We've got ourselves here on this button, HX-attributes. So those are attributes that the HTMX library interacts with. So here what we're saying is we're going to invoke, when we click this button, we're going to invoke the next block's endpoint on the server. The server is going to determine what the new state is, what the next state is for the UI, and return it. And it's going to return it as an HTML fragment. And the front end specifies the target, the HX target, which is referencing an element that is called, tagged with the ID dynamic. And we're going to target that element with the next 10 blocks with the new state returned from the server. So let's just go ahead and do that again. So we click the button, the next 10 rows are loaded. When we go to inspect it, it's actually there in the DOM. And when we look at the network tab, we see that we have our next block's endpoint, which has been invoked. The server has calculated what the state is and returned it as an HTML fragment. And to see this iterate, let's click it again, and we'll see the next series of blocks returned. So we have from 702 down to 697. And we can inspect this endpoint again and see that that's indeed what the endpoint returned. That is the next bit of state that the server calculated should be returned to the UI, and HTMX correctly, we had it configured correctly such that it would target the right position in the DOM so that it makes sense for the user. Now, this is promising because we've moved the state to the back end, and with a little bit of JavaScript imported, we've enabled the developer to specify how the front end should be updated statefully. And we've done that without any JavaScript at all, except for at least no developer maintained JavaScript. The only bit of JavaScript that we have is an imported library, which is acting like a little bit of glue to bind changes that have been calculated on the server side with updates in the front end. Now, this is very promising, but if you just consider the scenario of what if I have one event and I want to see multiple updates on the page, which matches the complexity of the modern web. I found a little bit of documentation that might help me with HTMX regarding updating other content, but so far in reading the documentation, all I've been able to glean is that there is one event and one update. I don't think HTMX is built to handle one event with multiple updates. So for example, when you look at the response, you get one snippet that's returned for one action, one event that has taken place on the front end. Now, so that's a pretty severe limitation. It's promising in that it moves state to the back end and it targets updates like you would expect a React app would, without reloading the whole page. But it's limited because unlike a React app, you can only make one update. So let's brainstorm together just a little bit. So we've got the relevant snippets of the front end DOM that we're going to consider, and so we've gone over this model currently where we have one event and one target, and so that's what's kind of represented right here. But brainstorm with me. Let's say we wanted to have one event and multiple targets. You probably would get rid of this HX target element, and maybe this HX swap. But like, let's, for the sake of example, let's just say we want to get rid of those. And instead of specifying the target, maybe we want to specify the event. So we want to say like load next blocks event. Now that gets submitted to the server sees this event, and it calculates what the next set of changes should be. And so here we are down here looking at what the response could be. And so instead of a response that is just an HTML fragment representing one event and one update, what if we returned an array of updates having a target ID, target element, and the HTML of what it should be? That way, you can see how we're moving into a different paradigm. This is like HTMX++. And the question that I have is, has there been some thought put into some kind of design pattern like this, where we get to move, we get to remove all the JavaScript from the front end, at least the developer maintained JavaScript. We get to move all of the stateful calculations to the back end into a strongly typed language, and we get this sort of specification in the response where we can get an array of updates representing the updates that need to occur to the browser in terms of HTML fragments given a certain event. And I think there is. I think there is a library out there, and I'm excited to maybe explore it. But I'll keep it a secret. Stay tuned, like, subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video.
If you want to see more experimentation with next-gen web dev techniques and languages, be sure to subscribe to my mailing list. Subscribers will get timely notifications about my latest videos, as well as access to my personal email. Thanks again. Bye now.